In this video, we're going to cover how to create assessments. Just for a quick review, we're right here on our chart. And what we're going to be doing is utilizing the standards that were created in the standards module. And if we created units, we'd be able to link the standards for those units into the assessment module. Before we start, I just want to give you a high-level overview of the assessment module. First of all, we can support many different types of assessments. For example, we can do open-ended questions, rubric, show your work, gridded response, similar to what SAT does. We can do the traditional bubble sheets. We can do student online entry, student essays, and we can have the teacher enter results. This would be probably more for perhaps a rubric, or for smaller children, a teacher can utilize that portion of the assessment module. And we can also have different types of assessment. We can do certainly the formative assessments, benchmark assessments, and summative assessments. So that's just a little background on our assessment module. Now we understand that some of these can get a little tricky to set up. And so one of the services that we offer is teachers can contact us at any time to help them create an assessment. All they need to do is kind of let us know what they're trying to do, and we'll work with them to create the assessments. It usually doesn't take long to create these. We're talking just generally a few minutes to create them. But because we have such a wide variety of assessments, there is a little bit of a learning curve with them. But we're here to help and make this easy for the teachers. Okay, so let's jump into the actual demo here. For this demo, if you go under Assessments, we have an Assessment Maintenance option here. Clicking on that, what that will do, this will bring up the same drop downs as you saw in the curriculum module, where we can select a grade level, we can select a content area, and when we do that, it will pull up all the assessments for that content area. Or what I can do, if I know the assessment number, which you'll see right at the end here, it's like 248, I can also just type in 248 and it'll bring it up. Or if I know the name of the assessment, I can also put that in here. So I can do something like pretest, and it'll show me all the pretests, and I can select them. The way the menus are set up, we have a setup tab, assign dates, questions, courses, reports, and where we can upload assessments. Now I'm going to show you how to create an assessment from scratch. To do that, I just hit on the Create Assessment button, and the first thing I need to do is assign it to a department or grade level. In this case, we'll take grade 3, and then to a content area. Again, these were set up in the curriculum module. Then I can assign it to a category. Typically we have these 3, which is common assessment, meaning this would be given to all the teachers that teach that content area. We can do a teacher assessment personal, meaning that only me as a teacher would be able to see this, and a teacher assessment public, which makes it visible to other teachers. So in this case, I'm just going to create a common assessment, and then I need to create a type. And this is just to kind of help identify the type of assessment this is. For example, we have final, we got a unit assessment, quiz, test, and so on. Some districts may choose things like a pre and post test or SLO assessment. But for this example, we'll just stick with test. I can also version these assessments. Typically the first version is going to be version 1. But what I can do is perhaps after some time, I want to make some changes to this. I can copy this assessment and make a version 2 out of it. And then the type. We can do a custom bubble sheet, which we'll talk about later. And we can also do district bubble sheet only, which would be like a Scantron. And we can do a student essay. So for this example, we're going to keep it simple and just do a bubble sheet only. What I need to do is give this a name. and I hit enter, and then what it does is it creates these tabs, and anything with a warning sign means that this has not been completed yet. If you see a check mark, it means that step is completed. Because we on the for reports uh, we can default certain reports, so you don't have to select any of those. So what I want to do is come to this setup tab. And so it pre-filled in it's a common assessment from my selections earlier. It's a test and the version number. This is the name I gave it, and I can always change that. We can also create gridded response questions. In most cases, it's going to be no. And we're going to leave this as a bubble sheet. We can also change the bubble font size. So for example, littler children you may want to use a bigger bubble, make it easier for them to bubble those in. And we set those globally at the district level. So for example, at grade 1, they might use a 16-point font, and the older kids a 12-point font. The other thing I can do is assign this assessment to a particular unit, let's say place value. And also I can set this up to be able to give this assessment online. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as no and make it a standard bubble sheet. And then what we can do is we have an assessment status. When you create the assessment, it will be planned. And by plan means that it's not visible to any of the teachers. When I release it, then it becomes visible to anybody that teaches, in this case, third grade math. And after some time, then I can also select retire, which basically makes it invisible to the teachers. They can't give it anymore. Now we don't delete anything because there may be a point in time when we want to look at use that data for analysis. So we will never delete anything. So for now, we'll leave this as planned. The next step is to go to the Assign Date tab. And this is where I can assign a date to this assessment, which is about when it would be given. There's nothing magic about that date. If you go beyond it, doesn't mean anything. It's just as a guideline as to when the assessment would be given. So in this case, we'll say May 9th. The other thing I can do is put a label on there. And this is nice if you're giving the assessment multiple times, like a pre-post test. So for now, I'll just call this a pre-test, and I can also set the cut score for this. So if I want to create a post test, I just hit add another date, and we'll put in another date in there. We'll call that one post, and maybe we want to change the cut score to 80% on this one. So now I got a pre and post test. The next tab over is really where everything happens. We're creating an answer sheet here. So what I can do is start out by saying, okay, I want to add 2 questions, and if I click into this, I put an A in there, it'll show me some choices. I can make this possible answers A, B, C, D, or I could say the first question is going to be A, B, C, D, and the second is F, G, H, I, and then it starts all over again with A, B, C, and so on. So for this one, we'll just do simple A, B, C. The next step, what I want to do is put in a correct answer. So for this one, I can just simply say the correct answer is A. And on this one, let's make this a little more difficult, and I can say something like B, comma, C, which means B or C is correct. If I put in B, C, it means B and C are correct. And if you click on the column heading, it gives you the help for that. So for example, as I have it set up, in this case, A and B, A and B must be bubbled in, or if I put A comma B, it's an or, so A or B is correct. So in this one I have B, C, meaning B and C must be correct. The other thing I can do is weight these, because this is a little more challenging of a question. I may want to assign 3 points to this question. The next thing is whether these are teacher scored or not. Again, if I click on that heading, by default they're not teacher scored, which means that the student will be entering an answer and it will be scored by the computer. Teacher scored Y means what we'll do is print a separate bubble sheet for that question, which will list all the students down the left and the possible answers across the top, and the teacher would score that. We also have teacher scored I, which basically means that we'll print, the students can write their answers on the bubble sheet, and then the teacher would score that bubble sheet. We don't use that one too often. So in this case, we'll just leave these as regular student scored bubble sheets. So we also have a score flag. If I click on the help, it shows that a Y means that we'll include the score into the total. A no means it's going to be excluded, and an E is extra credit. Where the no comes into play is if you want to give an assessment and maybe the last 5 questions are kind of like you want to see where the student is for the next unit, you can have those questions on the assessment and set those as no, so they're not being included. The other way it's used is after the assessment is given and it's determined that the question is a bad question, you want to throw it out, you can switch those to N and then rescore all the assessments, and that will, in essence, remove that question from the score. So in this case, we want to set these to Y's. And the next column over is the standards. So this is where I can assign a standard to a question. So again, these are set up in the curriculum module. So for example, if this first question, I can assign it to this one standard. I can organize shapes by their attributes, hit save. Then I can add another one. I can use the same one or give it a different one, hit save. So this is basically how, and then what I can do if I want to add more questions, I can say, let's add 2 more, and those are going to be true false questions. I can hit add, and I can say, okay, this one's going to be true, this one's going to, the correct answer is going to be false. And again, I want to make sure these are included in the score, and then I can also assign them to perhaps a different standard. We'll use this. And in this one, we'll do that. And so basically, this is all it's required to set up a simple bubble sheet. We also can do score conversions. So that would be more for a rubric style assessment. So what I can say is something like P is proficient and P is equal to, say, 3 points, A is equal to at, and that might be equal to 2 points, or B for below is equal to 1 point or something along that line. So we can do these score conversions as well. So the next step is to add the courses. So again, these courses are all set up earlier in the curriculum module for this content area. So I can assign this assessment to all the courses, or perhaps maybe one of the courses, however I'd like to do that. And then what happens is any teacher that teaches these 2 courses, they will see this assessment. So it's very simple to set these up. Again, we have some default reports. And then on this upload tab is where I can upload resources in case this is just a regular bubble sheet. So I can actually upload a copy of the assessment so it's stored on our server, so that whenever this assessment is given, it's readily available. Just hit the print button and that assessment's there. We can also upload resources, which could be maybe some instructions on how to give the assessment and so on. So if I want to preview this, I just hit the preview button. And what that will do is generate a preview version of the assessment. So this is what the assessment will look like. Normally when we print these, we'll give the student name, the teacher name, and the class. And then these are the what it looks like. And at the bottom is a barcode that will identify the assessment. Now normally when we print these, we'll print extra copy, which we call our student write-in sheet. There might be a situation where a new student comes into a class and the class roster hasn't caught up yet. you can actually use this to give a new student, and they just write their name in and their student ID. We have a process set up when these come in. We will give them a temporary ID, and then eventually, once we get the right ID, it will be uh, associated with that. And the idea behind this is anytime you give an assessment, we want to make sure we get those assessment results to the teacher as soon as possible. So now this assessment is basically all set. Other than what I need to do, it would be to release it. So in order to release it, I just flip this to released, and now it's ready to go. So now any third grade teacher would be able to see this assessment. So what the teacher would see, if I'm an administrator, I can click on this and select the teacher. So for example, if I select a third grade teacher, which I believe this is a third grade teacher, and I click that teacher, now I'm kind of acting as if I logged in as that teacher. Now, if I call my assessment number was 644, which is in this list, but we do give you an easy way to find those. I can either, if I know the assessment name, I can type it in here, like Gym Test, which is one I just created. Or if I know the number, I can put that in here as well. And the other thing I can do, these are all filterable columns. So if I know the assessment number, I can put that in here as well. I created a pre and post test, and this is what way it shows up. Instead of seeing the date, you'll see pre-test and post-test. So it makes it a little bit easier for the teacher to identify which one that is. And then to give the assessment, what I would do is click on select classes. And in this case, I only have one class. If it was a middle school or high school, you might see multiple classes there. And then I just hit the print bubble sheets. And these are the students in my class. And here's where I can generate a bubble sheet, or I can enter the results online. In this case, I'm just going to generate a bubble sheet. And what that does, it will generate the bubble sheet. It automatically puts in the student name, the teacher, the term, the course, and so on. And these are my bubbles. So every student in my class will have a bubble sheet. And again, this is all done behind the scenes. We pull in the rosters at night so we know what students take what classes and are associated with what teacher. And this is my student answer, or my write-in sheet, where I can, if I had a new student, I can write their name in. So basically the process is I print these out, give them to the students, they bubble these in, I drop them in a scanner, and usually in a few seconds these are scored. What happens is these bubble sheets are sent to our server in Milwaukee, and we have a process that picks these up and scores them. Like I say, it only takes a few seconds, and once we score a class, an email is automatically sent to the teacher saying that their results are available, and there's a link in the email. You click that and it'll take them to the teacher report. So now I'll show you how to create a custom bubble sheet. And just for reference, custom bubble sheet can be anything. We can take a PDF. You can create these in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, however you want to create the custom bubble sheet. Basically what it is we combine the questions and the answer on the one bubble sheet. So here's an example of a custom bubble sheet. Like say these are very easy to create. We've had districts, they'll scan us the end of chapter assessment, and we can make that a custom bubble sheet. So you can see we have the questions and we have the bubbles all combined into one. So to create this, close out of that. We'll create a new assessment. This time we'll stick with third grade math. Make this a common assessment. We're going to make this a test, version 1. And this time we're going to select custom bubble sheet. And I'll call this one Gym Custom. Hit save. So the process is pretty much the same. What we do is we'll assign this date. In this case, we're just going to use one date. We'll create the question. So if this has to match what's on the bubble sheet because this is what's used for scoring. So I'm just going to make something up here. We're going to do 10 questions. So we'll make these A, B, C, D. Click on Add, and there's my question sheet. So then I'd go through and fill in all the correct answers. So I'm going to take a shortcut here just to save some time, and I'll mark all these. And if I click on A, what it will do is make all these the same correct answer. We'll leave the possible points, and we can do the same thing with the score flag. I'll make all these the same. Hit the score flag. So now they're all scored. And again, I can tie these to standards, but again, for time, I'm just going to leave those as not tied to standards. I'd select my course. And what you can see now is this upload tab is now a warning sign, which means I need to upload this. So in order to upload it, I click on this upload button, hit browse. So I can select my assessment. We'll select one of these here and see what this one looks like. And then in order to complete the custom bubble sheets, we need to tell the scanner where the bubbles are, and that's what we do. So this dialog pops up, and what you can do then is put in when you would like to have this assessment, and you can put any comments as you would like in here to help identify when you need this by, or if you have some special requirements, you can put that in there as well and hit send. And what this would do is send our staff a notification that a custom bubble sheet is ready to be mapped, and we take care of mapping that, and then we will send that back to the teacher and release the assessment saying this assessment is ready to go. So now that I have this assessment uploaded, if I want to preview that, what I can do is hit preview bubble sheet. And what that will do is bring up the assessment that we uploaded. The answers and the questions are on the bubble sheet. And again, you don't have to worry about this. We take care of this. All you'd have to do is tell us, question A is light color, or a lot of times districts will just give us the choices and then we'll put all this in. So again, we try to make this very easy for you, but we'll take care of getting this formatted and everything mapped correctly. So at this point, the assessment is ready to go. And again, if you'd like to see more examples of custom bubble sheets, you can go to partnersforresults.com/bubble sheets and you can click on any. You can see some of the examples of things that we're doing. We also have some samples of our online assessments and some performance-based rubrics and so on. So this is just more of a reference to see what's possible. You can make anything an assessment. Again, it can be a scan document and the chapter document. You can create these in any media that you would like as well. And we do a lot of rubrics. Here's some examples of different rubrics that we do. Again, they're set up the same way. The only thing different with these is that you need to put a conversion factor in. Again, we're here to help get these set up for you. To create an online assessment, basically you follow the same process as a custom bubble sheet. The only difference is just change this to a yes. So in this case, for this assessment, we could administer it either paper and pencil or as an online assessment. So to administer an online assessment, basically we follow the same process. Here's the one I just created. I click on my classes. Now I click on print bubble sheets. This brings up my class. Now what I have is another option here. So I can either generate a bubble sheet or I can generate student online keys. If I click on the online keys, That'll bring up a page where you can give each student their sheet, and it has this assessment key, and this is what the students would enter in order to take the online assessment. One of the things we're looking at doing in the near term is to have something where the students can log in rather than having to print this paper out. And one last option I have is I can actually enter the test scores. Again, this would be more for a rubric. If I click on the teacher online grid, this will bring up my class roster and each of the questions. And basically, I just have to type in the answers like such. The other thing that I can do if I want, I can, works like Excel, and grab this little box here, drag that down, and it will copy all the answers down to all the students. So it makes it a little bit easier to enter all the questions. And then I can just hit either the tab or the arrow key to move across the grid. And this basically will I know there's a lot here, but we're here to help because we know that there's a lot of different options. But once kind of work with it, it's not that bad. But again, any questions, just let us know and we'll do our best to help set these up. Thank you.